Welcome to another digital conversation. This is on nonverbal communications, a very subtle part of the communication process. Again, I'm speaking with you specifically about how nonverbal communication works in business. So this may not necessarily apply to a more broader social setting. It's how the game is played in a business environment. So we're going to cover a number of points. One is a clear understanding of nonverbal communication. And then we're going to talk about the different types of nonverbal communication: facial expression, eye contact, body, clothing, distance, physical environment, time, status, and then the international subtleties of nonverbal communication. And then we'll give you some ideas on how you may want to work at improving your skill set. Let's start with the difficult one. California in particular is a really cool place to live. It is highly cross-cultural, and you're now in Sacramento, which has been found to be the most diverse community in the United States, which is very, very fascinating. So you have a great opportunity living here to practice your skills in international business. But one of the challenges we have is a number of you come from countries outside of the United States, and in those countries, eye contact is not appropriate. That at best, in some countries, direct eye contact is seen as disrespectful. And in other countries, eye contact is seen as threatening or hostile. So you're coming here with those conditionings in place, and you come into an American situation, and unless you make eye contact, an appropriate eye contact with your business partner or your peers, you're simply not going to be trusted. And that's because in the United States, eye contact sends a signal that I'm interested in you. I value what you have to say. It also asserts your power in a relationship. And it gets very, very interesting that when you're having a communication with a person, particularly somebody that has greater power than you need to maintain eye contact enough to show that they're not intimidating you, but then you need to break eye contact before you're seen as somebody that's aggressive. So all this is subtlety that you're going to have to practice because it's different on each boss, it's different on each peer, but learning when to flip the switch on and off, so you're looking and then you're looking to the side, then you come back, and the way that you maintain eye contact is very, very important. And again, if you maintain eye contact too long, it can also be seen as a sign of weaknesses. Please, 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 please do what I need. And again, in business, we don't want to be aggressive, but we want to be assertive. Eye contact also is a signal that I'm willing to engage and participate. And I watch over the years students work in teams on the various assignments that I give them. And that is a challenge for many students, just to sit down in a circle or around a table with their team and just look each other in the eye, because that eye contact is saying, hey, I'm here, my mind isn't someplace else, I'm willing to engage with you and get things done. So eye contact is important because it helps us control the flow of information back and forth, and it's also a tool that we can use to persuade. I didn't put it up there, but it's also a tool to establish your authority and your credibility to get your message across. Another area that is very important is our body movements. As we move our hands, and as you can see in the various videos that you've watched, I tend to speak with my hands. And that is an additional way to send messages to individuals. They can be used as emblems obscene gestures. I'm not going to make one on camera because then I'll have to go to the provost office and explain why I'm doing all these things. But you understand fully what they are. They can also be illustrators where you're making a point on what's going on. When you come into our colloquial day on our Mondays where we have an open conversation about all these topics, and you've been wound up pretty high, you have enough caffeine to get you through about a week, and you're walking on your toenails, and I respond to you, and then you start going on and on and on and on, you'll see that I'll probably hold up my hand. That's saying, that's enough, cut it off. So you can use your hand signals as a controller. And it's also interesting, in business we go to a lot of meetings, and like I said in one of my other videos, most executives have the attention span of a 3-year-old. So if I start to get bored and I start to want to figure out ways to stay engaged, I'll watch people and I'll look for their body movements on how they relieve stress. Some are with sighs, some will start pulling on their ears, pulling on their nose, playing with their hair. All those are adapters or ways that we help ourselves work through communications with other people. Another way that we communicate is through clothing. And it's absolutely fascinating to me that I've been given the opportunity here over the last 10 years in particular to do a fair amount of work internationally. And working internationally has required me to be very aware of how people in business dress in different countries. And it's very, very important that you're mirroring the people with the authority that you want to emulate in the countries that you're going into. We can bring that into the United States and we can bring it into your job search. So when you're going out and you're going to be applying for a job and you're in a job and you're looking to move up in the organization, you want to understand the organization's culture and how they dress. It's very interesting. I've had this conversation that California is very casual. And excuse me, and we're very casual because we want to appear to be very egalitarian, very open, everybody's equal, everybody's the same. And just for fun, I'll usually have a bet with the human resource manager that I can walk through the open workspace and tell you who's in senior positions. And she said, no way, we're all, it's dressed down, we're very casual. And you can walk through and you see, well, everybody's in jeans. But then you start to take a look at who the senior executives are, and they're wearing $400 or $500 jeans. The people that are the worker bees, they're getting their jeans probably at a discount store. The t-shirts are different quality. You get the idea. So in organizations, you want to be very smart about the culture and how that's reflected in the way that they dress. And my advice is that you try to dress one level above the job that you're in if you're looking to move up, because subtly people are going to start to perceive you as somebody that's already in that position. So be smart about how you dress. In business, the safe colors tend to be navy, gray, and neutral. We don't, unless you're in the entertainment business or in advertising or some of those higher profiles, you want to come across as a very solid individual. The colors that you select reflect status, and again, watch the game that's played within the organization to see what's going on. I always enjoy the presidential campaigns, not so much for the rhetoric, but I watch the way that the candidates dress, and you'll see them when they're on television for the debates. The color spectrum of the ties that the men wear are very, very narrow. You'll watch the women candidates, the colors that they choose are very much power colors. Again, they're trying to project authority. Sports coats and suits are starting to come back in vogue for men. So again, be very aware of the organization you're into, the country that you're operating in. I cannot imagine going in the industries that I work with in England, going into a meeting in any of those organizations in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, or a pair of jeans, a t-shirt, and a very relaxed sports coat. It's very much suit and tie. And then when you go in for job interviews, you want to do your research, become a little bit of an intelligence agent and collect information about how people are dressing, and then take a look at the people that are in the job that you want to fill. And when you come in for that interview, you want to mirror their behaviors so you look like you already fit in. We've had some interesting conversations about national culture and attire. I think we're becoming more accepting of different cultures and the way that they dress. Just be aware that you're going to be marked as somebody different, and you're going to be needing to address that difference when you come into the workplace. Another very interesting aspect of nonverbal is the physical distance that takes place between people. Now, these distances are American-centric. They're not global. I want to be very, very clear. These are not global norms. These are the norms that take place in American business settings and in American society. So typically in the United States, if you're walking down the street and there's somebody that's from 4 to 12 feet away from you, you're aware of their presence. They're on your radar screen. You're not making many judgments about them. You're just aware that they are there. When they move within 18 inches to 4 feet of you, they're coming into your personal space. And your brain is going, is that a threat or is that a friend? And you're starting to now place them into categories. So again, from your side, if you're approaching somebody and you get within 18 inches of them or 4 feet of them, you want to project friendliness, you don't want to project threat, you don't want to project aggression. The intimate space is very, very important for you to understand. That if you get closer than 18 inches to somebody in the United States, you're in their intimate space, and you're sending signals that may be threatening to that person. It can be seen as bullying, it can be seen as intimidating, or it can be seen as sexual harassment. So be very, very smart about the distance that you keep from a person, and make sure that that distance is reflecting the message that you're trying to send to them. Again, just a good heads up. When you change countries, all these distances change. You have to be aware of that. I was working in one country where the communication was almost nose to nose. And again, being a social scientist, I wanted to know why was it that when I was negotiating with this person, they were in my face. And we'd finished the negotiations and were having several adult beverages, so we're both pretty relaxed. And he said to me, I get that close because I want to smell the fear on the other person. And I thought that was a pretty interesting observation. So we think we're far beyond the animal state, but in reality there's a lot of our behaviors that haven't evolved that much in our thousands of years of evolution. Physical environment is also a very important part of our nonverbal communication. How we present our personal space sends signals to us. As you can see in the image that I selected for you, that is clearly an attempt to establish authority and power. It's not designed to make somebody feel particularly welcomed and relaxed. And when you set up offices, you want to set up your offices in a way that the seating and the desk are inviting if that's your goal. There's an interesting book that's been out for a number of years called The Disney Wars. And it was fascinating that At that point in time, Disney had co-CEOs, and I can't give you their names right now. The first guy was hired, and it's Disney. So he had a really cool office constructed, and obviously well appointed, very, very grand. So the next co-CEO comes in, sees this guy's office, and said, I got to establish more power than this person has. The second CEO, I got to watch my language to make sure that I'm politically correct, was height challenged. How's that? Okay? So he was a smaller person. So what he did in the construction of his office is he had the opening of the office ceiling set at about 10 feet, and then the offices slowly were reduced in height to where his office desk was sitting at the end of that space, and then he had a platform built on that space so his desk was even higher than normal. And then he bought a chair that scaled him to appear like he filled up the entire chair. So when you walked in, you had this image of this big, powerful individual, and he used that as a tool to intimidate people that came into that space. So watch your physical environment. Make sure that you're managing it in a way that it's sending a signal. I do some work with CEOs, and one of their questions typically is, I put together a new management team. We're trying to create a culture that reflects X. And how do I know that the culture that I aspire to create is being created? And one of the elements that we give them to take a look at is the physical environment that's taking place around them. When you look at the executive suite, is it open? Is it encouraging? Is it welcoming? You take a look at how spaces are designed. You're saying that you want to be a team-centric organization. Have you designed your space to where there's a number of meeting rooms, open spaces for people to get together? So again, take a look at that. If you come into the College of Business and you take a look at how our offices are established in Tahoe Hall, they are not opening and encouraging, and it doesn't mean that as professors we're not. It's just that the design of those spaces are not opening and welcoming. I do some work with the folks down at Stanford Business School. And when you go into their space, the faculty have private offices off to the side, but they are around the perimeter of the space, and in the middle are a number of small tables and chairs and couches so that faculty can come out of their space and sit down and meet with student teams to be able to help facilitate their conversations. So again, physical space and environment sends a powerful, powerful signal in the organization. And when you get to a position of authority and you're responsible for space design, be aware of what it is you're trying to accomplish. Some signs of power. Power tends to be a bit of a dirty word in America. In business, it's simply essential. You are not going to get anything accomplished unless you can establish a power base. And the way that you're seen as somebody with power is that you are confident. Your hand gestures are wide and expansive so that you're using big gestures when you're talking to people. That you hold your body tall and upright. Even when you're sitting, you hold your body in a way that projects authority. And you also do it in a way that's relaxed and friendly. And it seems a contradiction. So I gave you a picture of Christine Lagarde, who is a former French Minister of Finance. And I was working in France this summer, and her reputation as a person of substance in Europe is off the charts. So I was very curious, and I started to watch video clips of her in different meetings and giving presentations, and she exemplifies power. but she does it in a way that is not threatening or intimidating, but there's absolutely no question that she is a person of substance and somebody that you need to deal with. You'll also see that people in power are able to turn their back on other people, where people that are not in power work to stay in front and maintain eye contact with a person that's more powerful. And again, when they're seated, they hold themselves upright, but they also are very relaxed in the way that they sit in a chair. So again, as you move up in the organization, work at establishing your power within the organization, because it's critical for you to get your job done. You simply can't come to the table and negotiate for resources for your teams unless you're projecting a sense of power and authority. Again, not aggression, but power. Time is another fascinating aspect of our nonverbal communication. In the United States and in most of Europe, time is seen as money, and time is seen as valuable. Time is seen as a sign of respect. Time is seen as authority. So if you think about it, it tends to be okay for a boss to come in late to a meeting, but it's not okay for a subordinate to come in late. You can see that a boss is comfortable walking into somebody else's office and interrupting what's going on so they can intrude on their time. It is not okay for a subordinate to just drop in and intrude on a boss's space. So in the United States, we're very monochromatic. We're focused on time. We value it, and we need to pay attention to it. If you're in the habit of being late, start working with that on campus. I used to, in my classroom, to help train students to be better aware of that, is we had the accounting students sit at the door, and if you came in late to class, you simply put $1 into the pot, and then at the end of the semester, we took all the money that was contributed by people that were late for class, and we went out and had pizza. I was informed that that is not appropriate in the university, so I had to stop doing it, but I thought it was pretty cool. In organizations, it's even more interesting because they put a $100 fine on people that come late to meetings. And then every so often they'll get together after work and use that money to entertain themselves. In other cultures, they're polychromatic, and that means that what they value most are relationships. So they're not going to stick to a tight schedule. If something happens that could jeopardize the relationship with somebody, they'll simply come late for a meeting saying, I had to deal with this situation because it was important to the other person. You'll also see in meetings that they'll be interrupted all the time, that there's flows of people coming and going all the time. And it's very, very disconcerting for many Americans to operate in the polychromatic zones. But my tip is, if you're coming to the United States, understand that judgments are being made about you on your ability to be on time. If you're working in a polychromatic zone, be comfortable with a lot more fluidity in what's going on around time. With power, we also have to project status. We want to project that we are people of substance. And whether we like it or not, people are checking people out all the time. My wife has told me, so the attribution is to my wife, not to me, that women are checking out particularly women all the time. And they can do a scan on a woman when she walks into the room and break down every item of her apparel and will have put her in a category. I think men are kind of clueless. We just sort of show up. But we still pay attention to status. So we take a look at how people dress. And again, if you're on a limited income, just have a few outfits that are very high quality. The jewelry that you wear is going to be judged. I worked in China for, I guess, almost 7 years. And what I noticed over there, there wasn't that much attention paid to suits and ties and physical attire. What they were looking at is the quality of the watch that the individuals wore, and that was their signal of status within that culture. And then titles. In the United States, we tend to not be, and in California particularly, not that attentive to titles. But in other countries, it's highly important what your title is. I was sent by the university to do work in Far Eastern Russia. And at that time, I was a very junior professor. And one of the first things that the professors in that other university asked was what was my position in the university. And the fact that I was a low-level professor created problems for me in doing business in that university setting. In the United States, we tend to judge people more on what they're bringing to the table, but in other countries, the status that they carry is as important as their knowledge or other things. And cars are another status symbol. So we have to be very aware when you're in business, particularly if you're responsible for taking clients out to meetings or picking them up at the airport, they're going to be tending to the type of car that you drive, and they're going to be putting you into a category. So again, this may seem very superficial, very plastic, but the research is very clear that in organizations, status and power are incredible for establishing your credibility and your ability to get ahead. So again, hopefully this helps you in planning your career and will get you to where you want to go.